hopefully it'll last through the meeting. If not, I'll just subtract 10 minutes. Is your new guy coming? Are you going to show him how to do that?
You get to alternate now that he's here? Once he's not here. I think Frank just delegated to you, right? Oh, you did?
And you should. And you should.
I mean, it's only twice a month, but still. Like, you take one night, he takes the other.
What's up?
Nothing.
Hey, Madison. All right.
It's all F11, right?
No, actually, it's supposed to be after 11.
That's what I hit it.
Otherwise, it's supposed to go here.
I didn't, honestly, I didn't see the option.
What do you request?
What's that? Thanks, man. Frank wouldn't have been able to do that.
We're giving you a 7-day buffer.
First full week to see what happens.
Call this stated session of City Council order. Please rise for the invocation followed by the pledge of the flag. Heavenly Father, watch over our deliberations this evening and watch over those who have passed from this earth and the families that they left behind. Help rid our world of COVID-19 pandemic and get our community back to a place that is even better than normal. Help us be mindful of all of our children and all of the members that we are one race, the human race. Also, watch over our police and firefighters. Keep them safe as they keep us safe. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Ettinger?
Here.
Mr. Milan?
Here.
Mr. O'Connell?
Here.
Dr. Ruggles?
He's on vacation.
Mrs. Volcano? Here. Mayor Panto?
Here. This time we have the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
Moved and second. Any additions or deletions? Hearing none, roll call.
Mr. Ettinger?
I abstain.
Mr. Milan? Mr. Milan?
I was absent.
Who's
Yeah, but
absent?
it's not the minutes. This is
The agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano? Aye. Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Action on our minutes of their stated session July 14th of this year.
Move the minutes.
Second.
Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Roll call.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles? Oops, sorry, he was out. Mrs. Volcano?
Here,
Mayor
aye.
Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Now I abstain.
Okay, at this time, we're going to I'll call on Mr. Hopkins to introduce our topic for presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. We wanted to come tonight to give council an update on our Wood Avenue project. As council's aware, we took back Wood Avenue as a local roadway back in 2015, and since that time, we've been fundraising and working on various designs that are feasible based on the budget that we have. Right now, we do have a bit of a budget shortfall to accomplish the total project that we're presenting tonight. It's actually it's a fairly comprehensive project. It runs from Northampton Street out through the interchange. It includes the intersections of 7th and Northampton and Church and 7th. So, we're dealing with a lot of real estate there, and, you can imagine there's a lot of intersections throughout there, a lot of ADA ramps. We went through a feasibility and a concept study. With me tonight is Rob Hoffman from Traffic Planning and Design, who's been the traffic engineer, for years on this. And, there are some constraints with the project. There's some topography there that we had looked at bike lanes, but then we're sort of conflicting with on-street parking, which we really didn't want to, mess with too much in the end because it's needed in that area. So, the goal of the project is really to bolster pedestrian safety. We're actually looking at recommending flipping Wood Avenue one way toward the business district. We feel it's very awkward when you come in down Wood Avenue to be veered off on Church Street and then deal with that intersection. We're also looking at improvements and trying to tee off the intersection where Church Street meets Pearl Street. So we have, council just approved and authorized us to apply for a grant to the multimodal fund, and hopefully that bridges our gap need for financing so we can do this whole project. I think it'll be a wonderful improvement for the neighborhood and a good pedestrian project. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Rob just to kind of run you through the specifics, and then we'll be here to answer any questions.
Good evening, everybody. So we have on the screen here a couple slides that I'm going to work through for the project. Basically, what it consists of. Can everybody hear me if I'm back away from the mic a little bit? Okay. Basically, what it consists of. Wood Avenue has a concrete road structure, so we're doing a rehabilitation of that entire road structure, base repair, concrete base repair, and then ultimately it's going to be topped with the bituminous overlay. So you're going to have a complete new overlay of that corridor. In conjunction with that, you can see here we're at the beginning of the project at 13th Street end. We're going to be incorporating strategic islands throughout that corridor as we go. It's going to be a curved island, landscaped island, kind of a beautification aspect to the project. And as Dave mentioned, as we go through, there will be ADA upgrades.
That's all the way down Wood Avenue, correct?
All the way down Wood Avenue, yes, all the way down to North.
All the sections there will get ADA.
There's certain sections as you go through that currently are upgraded. The ones that aren't are getting upgraded as part of this. That's correct. Yeah, it's not advancing, Dave, for your. Nope.
PDF, you've got to scroll down.
Yeah, we got to scroll through the whole thing.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. So again, I mean, it's going to be pretty consistent what you see, but this is just moving into the next section. You can see the incorporation of those islands, at the key intersections. The ADA stuff is hard to pick up, as you can see. This intersection, little yellow mat areas. So that's just indicating where those ADA upgrades are being done. And again, just to keep giving you a flavor, it's more of the same. It's a consistent project through that corridor, going to create a consistent corridor. And then we got one more similar, and the biggest change, as Dave had mentioned, is now down at the business district end, where we're looking at flipping Wood Avenue to bring traffic into, rather than having to divert over through Church Street and back and around. You would come directly in. There'd be some signal modifications and upgrades up there that would become signalized as part of the 7th Street signal. And then you can see at this intersection, we've done some bump outs, again, with some landscaping treatments in those areas. And back on Prospect, 7th Street, you can see that's been kind of a complete reconfiguration of the way that intersection comes in. So it kind of brings it in and tries to tee it in into more of a traditional intersection aspect. Creates a little green pocket area there.
Will that be a rain garden or?
I'm sorry?
Will that be a rain garden or anything like that, David, for stormwater projects?
It could be, but since that doesn't bring the prioritize.
Yeah, but there's certainly options on what we could do with that. And again, that area would be, that area of the roadway would be resurfaced as well, obviously, within that limit. So that's
So that'll be like a 5-point intersection. Am I correct? If you bring that one way down?
with the signal, correct?
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, and that all gets worked out with the signal. We accommodate that via the signal phasing with new signal equipment.
Well, let's hope the synchronization is better than it is in front of my house. Yeah, okay.
So that's, I mean, really, in a nutshell, that's what we're looking at in accommodating the project.
What's the delta? So what is the delta so far on the project?
About 5,000.
And for the sake of consistency, where we have the traffic calming islands, when we think about when we prepare the base bid and then what alternates we may have to lose to meet the budget, it's going to be, unfortunately, I think it's going to end up being the stuff down closer to 7th and Northampton, which we like from an aesthetic standpoint, because I think that intersection could use some assistance, and I think this will be a great way to not only make it less awkward, because there's a lot of real estate there, but I think it'll really dress it up nice. And that'll be a nice transition from the downtown into the West Ward. It's a business district, a lot of courthouse traffic, that type stuff. So we're hoping that, the GAP financing grant, if we get that, and we'll put some effort into trying to lobby for it, that'll cover this part of it.
Will Church Street change the direction?
No,
So Church Street will still be
That's coming to that.
it'll come east.
still come east. It's coming
Yes.
east now. So you're gonna come east there and east coming down Wood.
The difference,
Right?
Correct. The difference is that we would not be forcing traffic down to Church into that intersection, which
Yeah,
is.
I understand what you're saying.
Oh, I got you now.
You see what I mean? Right now, you
Okay.
gotta come down and go through
And I think
church
when,
and
when
wind
people
up.
enter the city, it's kind of, it's not really the best welcome
No,
to
no.
throw them down there.
But if they wanna go to Bushville, they just come down church and.
Yep, and they'll just
Yeah.
make a left on.
They won't have to worry about the
Prospect.
light. Well,
Now, the westbound traffic, courthouse traffic that comes down there, that currently uses that to get back to 22, where are they gonna go now?
Based on the traffic studies, we figured they can almost take any of the cross streets to get there. I think a number of them might go up to the 13th Street intersection and make a right there. But I think others who are just more familiar with how
Love
the
7th Street.
neighborhood circulates, some might go to 10th. But we just don't, we didn't feel like it would be a concentration of vehicles on any particular street. I think there's just a number of ways to do that.
They're gonna keep going straight up
they could go
7th
straight, yeah,
and get,
7th.
8th or 9th and make very less and get back on Wood
Right.
Ave.
Yep.
Yeah,
I thought it was-
there's a lot of different routes.
You said Wood Ave, you're thinking about making it one way
Down.
The 700 block.
from the 700 block, I'm sorry.
So,
Okay.
so then right now you encounter a do not enter and it forces you east on Church.
Yeah.
It's the only way to get into the business district, whereas, we'd like people to come to the intersection and,
Wider.
kind of be welcomed in like that.
All right,
So it'll
I
be
get
one
you,
way
I get you.
east, wood,
That's, yes.
and
And
church,
we would,
both coming the same way.
correct. And we would switch the parking to the other side of the street. That was one of the,
Makes sense.
we were really close to being able to make this two-way, and we went back and forth, and in the end, these guys just didn't feel comfortable. It was really narrow. I think we were down to almost 8. There'd be mirrors touching, just because we couldn't eliminate the parking on that block, because it's really the only parking that services the,
But you got that one business still, 2 businesses still there.
right. So they need that, and it would have been really nice to have two-way, but there's too many constraints. Any other questions so far?
Joel.
Dave, so the trucks going to the new warehouse on Wood Avenue would get off 13th Street going east, go all the way up Wood Avenue to 7th, make a right turn onto Northampton Street, make a right onto 8th, get back onto Wood going the other way, and then head right to the warehouse.
That is one option. The other option would be they get to the ramp, they can't make the left, they go to the neighborhood, they get lost, and they tear down a bunch of wires, and which is usually what they do when they get lost in the neighborhood.
So we'll connect them with redevelopment.
Yes.
And it takes forever to repair it.
Yep.
And the streetlights.
Any questions for Mr. Hopkins or Rob?
So just going forward, because this is partially a federal project, we'll be going through the clearance process, and everyone's comfortable that, should everything go well, particularly if we get our gap financing, we should be able to bid this out over the winter and probably start the project in the spring. So, thank you for the time.
Thank you. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks.
Coming in. At this time, we have public comment on any agenda item only. There's time at the end of the agenda for public comment on any topic relating to the city of Easton. Anyone has anything on the agenda? Mr. Timmon?
Bill Timmon, 257 West Madison Street. Hold on a second, because I do have a question in regards to this project. You've got islands now proposed for Wood. How many parking spots on Wood are going to be lost due to these islands? I noticed that you've got parking spots now missing, and I believe you said that parking on that one way, the spots were going to be moved to the other side of the street, but on your picture, they're on that same side where they currently are, which is on the north side of Wood, where it's one way.
Oh, they're going to remain on the north side? Oh, that's good. It's on the same side as our house.
They're just gonna.
Okay, but my concern though too is there's a lot of people parking on Wood. These islands you're showing taking out a lot of parking spaces. No, so where people are parking now, like on the, unfortunately you pulled it down, but by what used to be Penny's Grocery, around 12th and Wood, people would park at that little park. and you've got no spots showing there. On a lot of south side parking spots, wherever you threw islands in, there was people that would park on the south side of Wood, and now there's no spots there.
Well, if they are parking there, they probably should. What we're showing is 30 feet from the intersection, and the islands are right up against the intersection with traffic coming. So if there is any loss of parking.
Okay, and my concern as well goes along with what the comment. I don't know if it was made flit or was serious. I think Ms. Volcano made it, where about how they tear down the trucks going the wrong way, getting into the neighborhoods, tearing down, wires and poles and everything else. And I foresee, especially that first island off of 13th Street, right now that's already a hard turn to make when you come east on Wood, when the road veers to the right. I can't tell you a number of times I've nearly gotten either head-on collision coming west from somebody coming east, or as I'm just coming through, you've got to hug that double line because now you're removing the parking spots that are right there, because there are people that park there. Normally, a lot of times you've got to go around cars that are parked right there. But it's trying to figure out how and where. I foresee a lot of lost parking spaces where the people that live in that area already park. And with these islands, come wintertime, they're going to be accidents, people crashing into them, I think, all the time. I honestly don't think that traffic study that you took into account for people sliding down a hill when it's snowed or icy or anything else. That's just from my quick glimpse of seeing the pictures here. But I think more needs to actually be looked into this. If anything, I'd say just without the islands, if you want to wipe out parking spots this way, it gives a little bit more buffer room, elbow room, because what is the width of Wood Avenue as it is? Do you know what it is? Okay, and if I recall from years ago trying to do some traffic calming in my neighborhood, in order for two-way traffic parking both sides, it had to be at least 50 feet. So if we're not already at 50 feet, and then you're going to throw islands in, you're cutting out any buffer zone. And I honestly feel you're running into a potential for more accidents and more damage and destruction, which then the city is on the hook for to fix once a truck drives over an island, busts a curb, and of course nobody's around to see it, nobody stops to report it. So then we've got to keep throwing, it turns into a white elephant that we're throwing money into.
David's question, Mr. Timmerman brings up a good point. Will we be looking at putting that, same thing we did on Smith Street Hill, where we put the skid kind of thing there, you know what I'm talking about? On the top of the hill, so that we're having so many people hitting that wall that we put that protection down. That might be a consideration to think about.
PennDOT puts down the high friction surface, but it's generally, in the city, we used it on Smith Avenue.
Correct.
We used it on Bushville and on Franklin Dobson. There's also a section on Elbow where you're having roadway departures.
Mm-hmm.
But normally, that kind of material we use.
Okay.
But I don't really see the need for that.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just concerned because I've slid down Wood, I can't tell you, for a block or two in the wintertime myself. So, and I just foresee it as a potential. And I'd really like council to put more thought into before approving anything on this.
Well, that's why we hired professionals. We're not traffic engineers and.
But the unfortunate thing is, like the traffic planning people, do you live here?
In the city?
Yes. Okay. We've got professionals that don't know the area by traveling it hundreds of thousands of times a year.
That's why you did the study.
Do you travel that road?
I do. I don't live that far away.
Nearly.
I live in Nazareth. I'm
Okay.
not far away, so I'm in the city.
Okay. But I'm on that road probably at least 3 to 4 times a week at the very least. And I can't tell you the number of times, either rain or winter with the snow and ice, I've slid down that road. And the thing that saved me is that there is nothing for me that I could keep going until I hit something that was not slick to be able to stop, or at least come to a slow enough speed at that point. And when you're going downhill in a 10,000 pound work van, there is no slowing down, hoping friction stops. You speed up. And if we've got big trucks that miss a turn and come down that road, an 18-wheeler or even a 26-foot straight truck, you're going to kill somebody.
Anyone else like to address city council on agenda items only? Yes.
Mark Jessamine, I work for the fire department. No longer a city resident, but I've been for 30 years. Just want to put in my site for the that Wood Avenue proposal for that piece of one-way there.
I'm sorry,
Wood Avenue.
what's your
section-
address, sir?
My address now is 212 Ridgewood Road.
Thank you.
That section of Wood Avenue, if you can change that the opposite direction now, that's a direct line of traffic for our calls. 90% of our calls, if we have a north side address, we take Wood Avenue that way. So if I did used to live in 25 North 8th Street. So now you're going to have the fire department go 7th Street up to Bushgill, make a left on Bushgill, that back down 8th Street, because there is no 8th Street off of Northampton Street. Wood Avenue is our direct line. So Walnut Street is the same on the south side. We take Walnut Street to get there. So now you're going to slow a response down. So a GSI report should be done to see if the response times for, entrapment with a fire is going to, slow us down.
Mark, now that makes more sense. I mean, that's a legitimate,
Yeah.
I think maybe Mr. Timmon was going too fast for conditions.
Yeah, I mean that's
slide.
that's where we go. If we have a call anywhere,
This is
Silk Mill,
something
we go that way. 11th Street, Jackson Apartments, we go that way. Now you're going to slow us down, and with a big tiller truck that you guys are getting ready to buy, we're going to slow it down. So now you have somebody ready to die. We got to get there. That's all. I just wanted to put that in there so it's
We'll
on
definitely
record.
take that into consideration.
Yeah, thank you.
Mark, that's an excellent, thank you for that. Anyone else like to address city council on agenda topics? Moving on, we'll go to consent agenda, Madam Clerk.
Under the consent agenda, we had bill number 23 that was introduced by Mr. Brown, which amended the 2021 Recreation Fund budget. We had bill number 24 that was also introduced by Mr. Brown, which would amend the 2021 General Fund budget. Bill number 25, introduced by Mr. Brown, which would amend the 2021 Revolving Capital Fund budget. We had bill number 26 that was introduced by Dr. Ruggles, where you're going to amend the snow emergency routes. And bill number 27 that was introduced by Dr. Ruggles, where we would be amending the meter zones. And we now have certificates of appropriateness being introduced by Mr. O'Connell. First one is for 22 South 3rd Street. The second one is for 33 South 4th Street. The third one is for 436 Northampton Street. And the last one is 233, 235 Northampton Street.
Move the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye. We'll now move on to reports. There are no reports received by City Council, so I'll move on to reports of the committees. Vice Mayor Brown, Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. I have two things coming this evening. I have Bill 28, which is amending the schedule for the sewers, and also Bill 29, which is amending the 2021 Recreation Fund budget. That is my report for this evening.
Thank you. Economic Development Committee, Councilmember Volcano.
Thank you, Mayor. Last night, the Pine Street Ad Hoc Committee met and deliberated over some of the questions that were put to the developers that they felt needed to be more clarified, and they hashed them out, and they also then advised staff to go back and ask some more questions because they were not clear on some of the things that were responded to. So they will be meeting in another month to review those requests and answers. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Madam Volcano. Planning and Code Committee, Councilmember O'Connell.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee, he's not here. Public Works Committee, Councilman Ettinger.
I have no report, Mayor. I do, however, have a couple of resolutions on the agenda later.
Okay, thank you. Administration Committee, Councilmember Milan.
I have no report, Mayor.
Report of the Solicitor, Mr. Shear.
Thank you. I just want to report to council that last night I attended the Wilson Zoning Hearing Board meeting, the mayor was also present, the matter of interest is the proposed mixed-use warehouse and light industrial. That's officially in their zoning application. Basically, I entered an appearance on behalf of the city, just indicating that I wanted to have official representation or party status so that we could, monitor what's going on and express any concerns. And just for your own background, the request requires a number of areas of relief. There are special exceptions. There are a great number of variances, but when you look at the actual variances that they're looking for, I mean, a lot of it has to do with the location itself, and they may well be for the betterment of cleaning up that particular area. I think one of the biggest concerns that the city may have, because I won't be taking any official position as far as filing appeals or anything without council's, approval and input. But I believe that the biggest concern I have is that they're required to have a major traffic study, and that's part of the special exception of going over 1,000 trips a day. I think they're proposing something like 1,350 trips a day. Now, that's not all truck traffic, but that'll include the people who work there. But the biggest concern is the truck traffic, because the entrance is along Wood Avenue beyond the 13th Street interchange. And as Mr. Hopkins shared with me, and I had thought of it myself, what is the route that trucks would take to that location? And you would think if you're heading westbound, you get off at 13th Street, it's not a problem. You just go straight to where the entrance will be. And I'm sure they'll be required to do widening or whatever, to make it. I'm not sure of anything, but they'll figure out how they get trucks in and out of the entranceway.
Have them get off at 25th Street.
The real problem is going the other direction. If you're coming from the west and you're heading east, if you get off at 25th Street, you go down Wood Avenue and it's at least a straight shot. But what if you either miss 25th Street or that little thing on your dashboard which tells you what the closest exit is? It says 13th Street, and you can't make a left turn from that corner. You're now in our new intersection, and that's the quote concern. Now, when I spoke to people, I get this general feeling, well, we don't really need to worry about it. We're going to make a condition on getting PennDOT approval, which they're going to need. My concern is that they're the first line. The zoning hearing board is the first line of defense there, and their ordinance requires this major traffic study, and I don't know how you make any decision on whether it endangers the health, safety, and welfare or not, which a special exception, remember, is a looser standard. You basically have to show that it would impair it. But how do you make any determination unless you have that traffic study in hand? And so I don't know that they're going to have it. The traffic study itself, a major traffic study, does get into the analysis of the side streets, et cetera. How far they get into to the city of Easton, I do not know. But so I just wanted to share that with you. Anybody's interested, the next meeting of the zoning board, it was continued to Tuesday, August 24th at 7 o'clock. So that's just my report.
It was continued on the request of the developer because of a legal issue that came up. Did we ever find out what that legal issue was?
No, I don't know. I don't know what it is. There's a neighboring, I don't know if it's a property owner or tenant, that has apparently a legal issue going on with the developer, and whatever that issue is, the developer felt it was wiser to continue it and see if they could work that through. The borough solicitor has requested that any objections be filed by that party within 15 days. So eventually, I guess we'll find out what it is. But I have a feeling it has something. There's some prolonged litigation that's been going on between the current owner and Specialty Minerals, and the the lawyer for the developer thought that was resolved, and apparently they found out that the other party, Specialty Minerals, does not believe it's resolved. So that's why it was held up. Nothing to do with the merits that would be our concern, the areas of the city's concerns.
What we did find out, staff we met with the developer yesterday afternoon. When he saw some of my comments from our last meeting, he called and wanted to meet. And we did meet. Dave met, and Lewis and myself met with the developers and their attorney. And our big concern, obviously, is I'm very confident that they're going to clean up the parcel environmentally. I don't know that we're substituting red pigment dust with truck fumes. And that's still air quality. But the one thing that we really did want to talk about was the extension of the Carl Stoner Arch Trail through the property. Sometime during the previous administration, the city allowed Elementis to put up gates, fences across the trail. So when you left the Carl Stoner Trail at 13th Street, you had to go, in order to get back up on the trail, you had to go up to Bushkill Drive, down across, and then cross one of the bridges to get to the trail. I believe they were very cooperative in that sense, that I think we'll get the extension of the missing tooth. But there's other concerns we also have. Unlike the warehouse in Phillipsburg, this one does affect the city directly. And as we told them in the meeting, I was very honest with them that it's been 100 years, but we have an ordinance that says that land is our land. We annexed it from 13th Street to Hackett Park when the Hackett family donated the parklands to the city. So we're not bringing it up because it's 100 years ago. And I'm sure there was a reason why Wilson and Easton decided that. But when I was mayor from 84 to 92, the water and sewer customer was ours. They were ours for water and sewer, but all the taxes went to Wilson Borough. So they bifurcated the issue and came to some compromise. Since then, Pfizer started to pull 1 million gallons a day out of the Bushkill rather than buying public water. So there's a number of issues that I think need to be resolved. And after this meeting, I'm going to Williams Township because they're putting a truck stop. They're allowing Turkey Hill to put a truck stop on South Side. And that's in Williams Township. They don't have a police department. And we all know what the types of problems we have with truck stops. And it's right over the border of Easton. So it's not up on the hills side where all the residents of Williams Township live. It's down in the industrial area, which is contiguous to the city. And we just want to make sure that we're on record of making an appearance and at least, again, monitoring so that if there is a case where city council decides to stop the project and bring a lawsuit against a court case appeal, we could appeal to the zoning board. Their variances are a little bit more stringent. They have a use variance, which is number one, but it is zoned. I'm sorry, they don't have a use variance. They don't have a use variance. It's zoned highway commercial. So.
Yeah, and the one in Wilson is not a use variance either.
No, it's not.
So it's all these little
Okay.
things. I can say from an observation point of view, as far as the public participation, we had more people speaking at our city council meeting about the Phillipsburg warehouse than I saw people from Wilson Borough.
I was very concerned. I told members of council that today. I was very concerned about the lack of attention that the Wilson Borough residents are giving this. And again, I think it's because it's not in their borough. If it was at the Dixie plant or the Mac plant, I'm sure they would be there. But pigment plant is it only will affect the deleteriously. It affects the city of Easton, not the borough. But we have a good working relationship with the borough. As I told the members of council last night, I don't want this to burn bridges. We have a good working relationship. We just did they're putting a billboard up down at their Fisk Field on Wood Avenue. And we allowed them to come through our urban forests and stuff. And we will always do that. I mean, we want to be good neighbors, but we want them to be good neighbors as well. Anything else, Mr. Scheer?
No, thank you.
Mayor's report. In addition to that, I am going to Williams Township Zoning Hearing Board after this meeting. I want to mention again, on September 4th, we'll be honoring all first responders with a parade. Mr. Stiller will be coming through Easton as he walks from the Pentagon to Shanksville to New York City. It's a Saturday morning. The parade will be at 11 o'clock. We've been getting some good responses already. Palmer, Wilson, Phillipsburg obviously are in it. But we are getting good responses from our neighboring communities as well as our own. City council got a copy of this, but also Our Carl Stoner Arts Trail was featured in Sculpture Magazine. It's an international magazine. It was a two-page spread that talked about that. I want to thank Mr. Hopkins, who has done a great job with that trail that we built about 11 years ago. And also, I want to let you know that we continue to fight the East Penn Pipeline. The East Penn Pipeline is coming through Humor Park. Interestingly, the city of Easton goes all the way to Route 33 along the Lehigh River. Some people don't know that either, but if you look at an actual map of the city, Hackett Park is up here. I had this discussion with a former Palmer supervisor last night that wanted to know where the Palmer line was. I said it's somewhere north and west of the Hackett Park, because that's corporately it's in the city of Easton. But we do own all the way out to Route 33, and they are coming through there. They're offering us $15,000 to condemn our property, and they need like a half an acre, 0.59, I think it is, Joel.
Yeah, I don't know the exact
I think it's
amount.
0.59.
We did hire a firm that is supposed to be representing our interests. It's a federal condemnation, so it's not in our state. It's not in our state courts.
So the September 4th, in the Winter Village, just to give you an update on Winter Village, we have great participation again. All of our huts are already filled. We will be making a decision within the next week to 10 days as to whether we're not going to purchase additional huts. We would like to get up around 20 to 23 huts. We have 17. We might buy 6 more. We'll check to see if there's any interest. Also, you may have seen there was some social media coverage on our county pocket park. We got a $50,000 grant for primarily the south side and west ward pocket parks, which were originally buildings that are now either blighted or fire destroyed them. They're now these little parks in the area, and trying to preserve as much open space greenery as we can for our neighbors, especially the children. Also coming up Tuesday night is August the 3rd, National Night Out. I hope to see council members out and about. Next weekend, of course, is Liberty's Heritage Day, which will be a crowded area. I want to let you know that on August the 21st, we're going to try, hopefully it doesn't rain again, but we've had our cruise night canceled June and July. August, we actually have Strictly 60s, a band from New Jersey, coming to play, and they'll be the first time in the Easton area. And then August the 28th is the Veg Fest. I'll turn over to Mr. Campos for his report.
All right, thank you, Mayor. A couple items here. The first, I made comments at the last meeting regarding the hire for the deputy finance director position, and Peter Corey is here today, who will be introduced more formally by Mark Lesnecki. But I do want to just make a quick comment, and Mark will talk about the selection process because it was fairly competitive at the end. But I did have the opportunity to work with Peter when I was director of administration for the county, where Peter was an analyst, the lead analyst, if you will, working on the Graysdale financials. At the time, there was a significant county contribution from the general fund to Graysdale to help subsidize the operation. And that's always a point of friction, if you will, the subsidy that goes over to Graysdale. So it could range, for example, from $0 to millions of dollars. So at that point, it was about six million or so. And don't quote me on the actual dollar figure, but it was in the millions. And Peter was instrumental in helping bring transparency and helping us make decisions to whittle that down. Ultimately, if you all remember, there was actually a millage rate increase, but that went to capital improvements that also then assisted the Graysdale facility. But just giving you my 2 cents, it was a competitive process, and it was tough at the end, but that experience, I think, helped win my vote, plus his background, which I'll let Mark talk a little bit about that right now. And then after Mark, after you're done, I just have 1 or 2 more items on my report.
Okay, thank you, Louis. So, as City Council knows, the deputy finance role is a vital one here in the city. A person in that position is basically the right hand of the director and is an integral part in helping run the operation and maintain the city's financials. When Rebecca, the prior deputy, announced her resignation, we began a thorough recruiting effort to get the best candidate to join our finance team. all in all, I think we had about 20 applicants who applied for the position. We whittled that down to about 5 whom we had interviews with, and then we had 2 finalists that we had multiple interviews. I noted here that they endured multiple interviews with several folks on the team, including Lewis, Chris Hagel, our city controller, etc. And after much deliberation, we agreed that Peter Corey's experience, his background, and his demeanor would be the best fit to help us continue moving the city forward. And he's come in, he started last Thursday, and he's really come in and hit the ground running, and we're really happy to have him. So, Peter, if you'd like to come up and say a few words.
Yes, so I'm a lifelong Easton resident. I hit the big 5-0 last year, so I've been in Easton for 50 years. I've enjoyed my time, and I'm just really excited now to apply all my professional experience that I've learned. I was with Merck and Company, private sector for 20 years, the county for 5. In the last 2.5 years, I was with a continuing care retirement center as well, Morning Star Living, Moravian Hall Square in Nazareth. So I'm just eager to learn and apply all my knowledge and help the city. So a lot of the names here I've seen. I know you probably don't know me, but I look forward to working with all of you.
Very good, Peter.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard.
Next up, Mayor, I wanted to invite Tracy Werner, who's our communication arms through Blabbermouth Communication. As you know, she works closely with myself and the administration. We put together an annual agreement which, amongst other things, details what her work outcome should be. So one of them is obviously overall exposure on social media, but a second big one this year has been the newsletter. And so there's some impressive numbers. We've come a long way since we started this effort. And in our agreement, I think it's twice a year, she's slated to come to council just to give a quick update. After Tracy is done, I have then one more last announcement.
First, I'd like to break everything.
Well, while they're getting that
Yeah, go
up
ahead.
and running, there's the last announcement that I would have is that we did receive the results from the survey that we put out regarding the interest areas for the ARP funding. Actually, it was very well received for non-scientific survey. We did receive a lot of input, a lot of respondents. What I'm working on is putting that detail together so we can provide that high-level summary back to council. We did request a lot of names and addresses. So from that part, I think it's very intriguing because someone's putting their name out there. But in general, in most of the areas, you were getting about on the high end about 300 to 400 responses per question, which I thought was fairly excellent. But we'll dig into the details, and I'll provide a little bit more of an executive summary to council, most likely by the next meeting.
I apologize. My Mac is not playing nicely with the system, so we have a backup.
I guess today I had a call with what's called a 6 cities call. So I talked to the other city administrators or managers. It's a weekly call that we have, so we talk about issues that are occurring. And with regards to this issue on ARP funding, I think everyone is still in the same boat. There's movement on spending. There's movement on doing a lot of community input. It ranges mostly right now probably on non-scientific type of surveys. Having open forums, if you will, doing a survey like what we did, and looking to allocate generally where that money should be going. So there's a lot of talk out there. Some cities and mayors are presenting different ideas, while others are waiting a little bit until they get a little bit more either clarity or detail from the public. This money has in the short run, has a little greater of a time limit, so therefore everyone's being diligent in terms of looking
Well, we're also waiting for the final rules.
and the final rules, and everyone's being diligent in terms of waiting for the input.
And also, before Tracy starts, I would just mention, as this year is a transition year, we were hoping to come out of our doldrums with financials that we didn't get in 2020. We did receive our notice in our bank transfer of the second quarter of casino money, and it's still below budget for a normal year, but it's not bad for what we anticipated this year. We anticipated being back at like 75 or 80% in July, so in the third quarter. So the second quarter is a little better than the first quarter, but it's not quite up to the $1.3 million a year. So we'll keep you posted on that.
So as Mr. Campos explained, I have a contract with the city to provide marketing communications services, and he asked me to give a update for the first half of the year now that that's behind us. So I just wanted to go over some of the goals of our marketing initiatives. So we certainly want to be a communication tool for residents of the city of Easton first and foremost. We want to make sure that city residents know that their social media channels, their marketing communications are resources for them, that we can build awareness, we can share information with them so that they are in the know at all times and have that opportunity to connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, as well as through our media communications with the local media outlets. So we really want our channels to be a resource. Here we go. So we talked about social media, of course. I'll go into that a little bit more. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are our primary channels. I also started a newsletter last year. Coincidentally, the timing was March of 2020. We were planning the newsletter before COVID, but the timing actually worked out really well because we had a lot to communicate to our residents during COVID, of course. And also updating the city website, so it is an active, currently updated resource. So our social media accounts right now with Facebook, which is a channel that I inherited that was already up and running when I took it over in about May of 2019. We have over 7,000 likes of the page, so that's up to 7,000 people we have the potential to reach. Of course, not every post goes to all 7,000 people, but it is an avenue for people to connect with us, ask us questions, comment on things that we share. Instagram, which was started by me in the spring of 2019 when my initial contract with the city began, is now up to 4,700 followers. And Twitter is coming along. It's not our strongest channel, but it's around 1,000, so it's still a very good way to reach people in the community. My goals are to generate content about the city on a daily basis. The content is a range of everything from today, finding out that we're canceling street cleaning tomorrow because of the bad weather, attending Monday's check presentation with County Executive Lamont McClure and putting that up on social media and photos and videos. So it's a wide range of activities in the city, things from City Hall, news that residents, visitors, business owners, volunteers in the community would need to know. I create graphics, I create and shoot and edit videos as needed. I also run Facebook ads from time to time, like we're doing right now to promote our fall rec sports, hopefully get some more interest and signups in those. And of course, people do reach out to us very, very often with questions about the city, things that they want to make us aware of, and then those things I pass along to the respective administrators to respond to. And these are just some quick screen grabs for specifically for Twitter and for Facebook and Instagram, just to show you how much activity we have on those accounts. Even though Twitter is only 1,000 followers, it still has the potential reach for impressions of over 41,000. So these are the best ways for us to be communicating with our stakeholders. One of the things that's part of my contract for this year is to endeavor to create awareness with residents about curbside recycling and how to do it properly, because we're getting a lot of contamination. And Dave will easily tell you about our problems with people putting things into the recycling bins that do not belong there. And then when that's collected by our recycling partner and taken to waste management, it is deemed contamination. And the city, unfortunately, pays a penalty for that contamination. and we need to create awareness with residents to please stop doing that. So this has been an ongoing campaign. It will continue throughout the year. I'm creating graphics on specific things that they should and should not recycle so that we can hopefully make them aware to better address their recycling habits and to be more aware how recycling today is very different than it was when it was started back in the 80s. The e-newsletter, we use Constant Contact, which is an online email marketing tool. We send out a monthly e-newsletter around the middle of the month. Again, it was started last year during the pandemic, but not because of the pandemic. We currently send it to about 6,000 email addresses, and that list is always growing. Our open rates for our newsletters are in the 40 percentile range, which is actually very good. It might not sound good, but for email marketing, 40% is actually very strong. For us, it would probably be 20 to 25% would be considered good. So I'm very pleased with the amount of engagement we're getting, that people who are subscribing to the newsletter are indeed opening it and looking at it. We also send out periodic emails for things like snow emergencies in the winter, when we have important public meetings coming up. We did about COVID, as I mentioned, and we used it to promote the Winter Village this last year, and we'll do so again. And these are just a couple quick screenshots of, on the left is an image of our latest municipal newsletter for July, which went out late last week. One in the middle is an example of what we did for the Winter Village, and the one on the right is an example of a storm emergency and how it impacted trash and recycling and parking and things of that nature. Residents are encouraged to sign up for the newsletter. They can do so very easily on the website at that URL. They can also see links to the 6 most recent editions of the newsletter. And they can always unsubscribe if they change their mind, if they move out of the area, if they just decide they don't want it. They can safely unsubscribe. So it's really quick and easy and effortless to sign up. And then part of my responsibilities is also working with Dustin and IT to maintain information on the website. That might be putting up urgent alerts. It might be putting up news alerts on our homepage. News announcements, that is, adding board and committee meeting agendas, and just trying to keep it active. And now that events have returned to Easton, I'm updating our calendar of events with city events as well as our city hall related meetings and events. I had time for my sister to call. And then finally, I work with Mr. Campos on any public relations and media relations that the city requires, sending out press releases and media alerts to our local outlets, coordinating with them any requests that they have for media interviews with anybody on city administration and the mayor. I answer their questions, provide any photos or videos that they need, and sometimes, if it's necessary, direct them to a community partner that might help support their article or news segment that they're doing. And finally, my final slide is just everything that didn't fit into the previous slides. So attending the weekly admins meeting, so that is important for me to stay in the loop on what's happening here in the city as well as at City Hall, so I know what to be putting out to the public. Communicating with members of the administrative team on any issues that are coming up, anything I need to know about that the public then needs to be aware of that can go out in the newsletter or on social media. Attending events, I see many of you out at events. At the farmers market, David, seeing you at different mixers and programs and things to show that the city is active and it's alive, and there's so much going on here that I'm anxious and excited to share on our social media channels. I work with Kudu Creative and any other graphic design and photography partners whenever we have advertising or marketing to do, and working with Dustin also to issue Easton alerts through text, email, and phone. For example, today's announcement that street cleaning would be canceled tomorrow. When I get that information from Public Works, I send it along to Dustin. He puts out the Easton alert. So again, liaising with all the different departments in the city. So that is a very rushed overview. I hope that gives a quick summary of what the first 6 months have been like, and the remaining 6 months of the contract will go the same way. Can I answer any questions, or are there any observations?
I would just like to say that it's long overdue, and I thank you very much, because I know you're doing a very good job.
Oh, great. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Campos?
Nope.
Okay, moving on, we have correspondence, a letter from AFSCME Local 447, and there's no unfinished business, so we'll move, Madam Clerk, right into new business.
We have bill number 28 being introduced by Mr. Brown, which would be amending the fee schedule, and that's actually to correct an error that was made a long, long time ago that was just found, unfortunately.
Move.
We have Bill number 29 being introduced by Mr. Brown, amending the 2021 Recreation Fund budget.
Don't introduce.
We have a resolution taking the Historic District's recommendation to disapprove a certificate of appropriateness for 32 South Sixth Street. And that's going to be introduced by Mr. O'Connell.
It's not introduced, it's
Introduced them.
it's a resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Moving to second, this is exactly the problem I have with trying to put a historic district into the West Ward. Here's a person who's tried to fix their home with aluminum windows rather than wood windows, and they were disapproved. I think it's systematic prejudice against poor people, and I really have a problem with that. This one I will not defend because, as I read their minutes, they actually did this before they even got approval, and they did it without a building permit. So that's one reason why I will support this, but it just goes to show that you cannot have the poorest section, the most densely populated section of the city expected to maintain, or not maintain, but to do the same type of material uses that you would use in your local historic district, such as hardy board versus vinyl, or replacement windows for $150 each rather than wooden windows for $900 each. Again, if the person can afford it and wants to do that, great. And I'm sure some of the people out on 14th Street and Hayes Street around there would want to do that. But and I did it in my house. 2 small kitchen windows cost me $900. But that doesn't mean everybody should have to be forced to do that. And this is a perfect example. I will vote for this because the individual didn't follow the rules and didn't come for a building permit and didn't get approval beforehand. They could have claimed financial hardship to the Historic District Commission and gotten relief. They've never given it, but they could have gotten it or tried to get it. So I will vote for it, but it just validates the reason why I don't believe that a person who lives on a 15-foot wide house in a row home should be susceptible to the same type of standards as the new buildings, multi-million dollars going up in a local historic district, or an old brownstone or a limestone or anything else. You want to force a developer to Seville to use brick and limestone on their facade? I don't have a problem with that. But when you're forcing people who've lived there for 50 years to conform to a local standard that's provided for by the Department of Interior, I just think it's wrong. So I'm waiting. They have not come back for the Conservation District at all. I haven't heard a word about it. They came in all pepped up and then dropped it. But I think it's the same reason why urban chickens aren't allowed in the city. You can't tell me that if you have a 1 acre plot on College Hill, you can have an urban chicken, but you can't have one if you have a 15-foot wide yard in the West Ward or in the South Side. It's not fair. Either you allow them or you don't allow them, but you certainly don't judge it by the size of your lot, which obviously gives you the size of your pocketbook. So I'm going to vote for this disapproval based on the fact that they did not follow the rules.
Did someone from the staff work with them to accommodate the regulations? Do we know of any staff member that spoke to them to help them get this approved?
I don't know. I think they went ahead and did it without any approvals, any involvement of the city.
They obtained no code permits, nothing.
That's what the minutes said.
What's that?
According to the notes that we got,
That's what I read.
they just went ahead and
Did it.
did it
Did it,
without any
and
approvals.
then it was reported.
Yes.
Maybe we can just work with them to kind of address the deficiencies. I agree with you, but I think we can maybe do a little better in kind of working with them to kind of make this, we can rectify this.
Well, I think the local historic district, which I helped write on the task force in 2006, but I guess, to me, I know Mr. Hopkins will disagree with me that we don't have any alleys in Easton, we only have streets, some are narrower than others. When I wrote that, when I was involved in that committee, I didn't realize that if you could see a window from the back, it also is susceptible to the local historic standards. These are 2 back windows and a side window. The side window said you can't see from a street, so they allowed that one to exist, but not the 2 that can be seen from the alley.
I believe the note said that the owner was gonna conform with the historic district,
Right, what I'm saying is maybe we can just formally request staff to kind of help them navigate the rules, that's all.
for
And
I
if
remember
that's
that.
what you're telling us, maybe we should just table this.
I mean, I just think it's
I'm pretty sure that's what it said in the notes that we got.
I didn't see
I'm,
that.
our staff.
I'd have to go.
Our staff.
Yeah.
I'm recommending our staff talk to the applicant. That's all. I mean, some people just don't understand this kind of thing. That's all.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
So I
But-
think it would just be,
But
I
see,
think-
when they come in for a building permit, if it's in a local historic district, the code department does.
Talk to them.
okay. I mean, I'm just saying. Look, I'm just.
Talk
It's
to-
a good story. That's all. I
I'm-
think it's. We can vote on this. We can table it, but I just think we would be better equipped to talk
agree.
to them and kind of walk them through the process.
I
It is
definitely agree.
convoluted. It's convoluted.
It is. I agree.
So I just think we do have the staff to kind of help them navigate that. So it's my recommendation. We can go with the vote, Mayor.
All right,
I mean, it's
call the question.
Are we taking a vote on it now? Okay, a vote to deny it. Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
We have a resolution being introduced by Mr. Milan, approving a job description for the new position of Systems Administrator in the IT Department.
moved.
Second.
Moved in second, any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
We have a resolution, hang on one second. Also being introduced by Mr. Milan, making some amendments to the 2021 salary and wage ordinance, or resolution, I apologize.
Moved.
Second.
Moved in second, discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
We have a resolution being introduced by Mr. Ettinger, which would approve a grant contract with the County of Northampton in the amount of $50,000, which would support the improvements to the various pocket parks in the West Ward.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second, discussion? Dave, you want to just give us an update on the Nesquehoning Street Pocket Park?
The one that's the burial ground.
The one that's the potential burial ground?
So we were working with the State Office of Historic Preservation, and they offered us a grant. So we did apply and we did receive it. This maybe 2 weeks ago, they said give them about 4 weeks to put together, a scope for us and a grant to come before council. Once that's approved, generally, I think they want us to partner with a certified archaeological firm to do ground penetrating radar. First thing we need to do is establish whether there's bodies interred there, and I think that would then sort of set the direction for what the site becomes. In any case, we understand the sensitivity, and we want to make sure we do things right here. And they're actually a tremendous resource. They've done a couple of large sites in Philadelphia, and so they're helping us through the process to make sure everything goes the way it's supposed to. So I would anticipate us doing some work probably in the fall and trying to get that done before winter, and then maybe do some design work, whether it becomes an actual cemetery, a memorial, but that's the direction I think we're headed.
Dave, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that on Nesquehoning Street, or is that on the side where the church is at?
If I'm not
St.
mistaken, I
John.
think Hoyt
I mean,
is,
It's on Hoyt Street.
Hoyt is behind it for the access, but,
Okay.
but,
But
you,
it goes down to a Nesquehoning.
That's
Goes
what I
to
thought. Okay.
Nesca.
but you can walk up
Yes, you
the
can.
grass from the
Yes, you
front.
can.
And
Okay.
incidentally, we did pull the deed information, and the city acquired it in 1956 from the church, and really there was no disclosure of any such facility there, and that's when I think back then the city administration would have had really no idea, and I think it was well intended what they did, but unfortunately somehow that history got lost, and that's what we're trying to rediscover here.
How much are we asking for the grant?
We were awarded $7,500 with a matching commitment of I think $3,000, which would cover the initial. It'll cover the initial architecture work and the ground penetrating radar. Once that's done, then I think we would either use the open space plan to fund. It may just be a matter of making a nice, respectful space. It really depends on the outcome. Yeah.
Dave, when did we acquire this? What year?
56.
56.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded and approved.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Eddinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
We have our last resolution being introduced by Mr. Eddinger, approving a proposal between the City of Easton and Barry Issett Associates for the design and bid phase services for the demolition of 1218, 1220 Ferry Street.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Eddinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
At this time, we have public comment on any matter that come before the City of Easton. Anybody come up, please, 5 minutes, give your name and address, please.
George Rivera, 11 North 6th Street.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Mayor, Councilman, and Councilwoman, I prepared a statement that I would like to read. As the president of Local 713 Eastern Professional Firefighters, I have come here with several of my union brothers tonight because of troubling things that we saw in the last council meeting. I'll do my best to clearly communicate our concerns, but keep in mind I'm a firefighter, not a public speaker. First, I'd like to start by stating that the deputy chief is not a member of the union, as it's clearly spelled out in our contract on page 1. It was repeatedly stated in error at the last council meeting that he was a union member of ours, and he's not. To use that false...
I don't want to interject, but are you, because I know it's aimed at my discussion, my conversation, are you saying that they're not a member of the IAFF?
He is not a member of Local 713 union.
Okay, that's at his choice. At their choice.
No, it's in a bargaining unit.
He's
It's a
not.
contract.
Neither him or the chief.
They're not in the they're right, the CBA says they're not in the bargaining unit.
No.
They're not in the bargaining unit.
Correct.
But that doesn't mean they're not in the IAFF.
I'm not speaking about that. I'm talking about our local union.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I'm saying,
Local
they could be in the,
713.
just like our police chief can be in the FOP,
Yes.
but he's not in the bargaining unit.
Yes, he could choose to
Okay,
be
well, I just
a
wanted to show you
member
what my
of the
distinction was.
International
Yeah.
Association
To
of
show you what my
Firefighters.
distinction was.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Sorry there. Let me. To use that falsehood as a supporting factor to abruptly change the hiring practices for the position is wrong. Past chiefs have used their influence as chief on the Civil Service Board on several occasions to change rules that directly impacted the good order and safety of the department's firefighters. These changes were made quietly with no input from the people that were affected. This is a continuation of the same unsafe practice. The concerns that were raised by council members and the chief at the last meeting are not true and do not reasonably justify changing the currently established civil service rules. One of the reasons stated for the change was because no one was qualified or met the standards, except for one firefighter that was retiring. That is another falsehood. There are at least 2 firefighters that meet those standards that were in place. Another reason cited was the vetting of candidates. We don't understand how eliminating qualification requirements creates a better and safer candidate for deputy chief of a fire department. Before the changes, the applicant had to work as an officer for 5 years, rising through the ranks and demonstrating their qualifications. Former Chief Krill supported the idea that if changes were made that followed the third-class city code, that the written portion of the testing could be eliminated, and his reasoning was because captains and lieutenants already test to determine their level of knowledge. These changes ignore that rationale. They eliminate experience as an officer in the fire department as a requirement in the vetting for a position of deputy chief. The mayor, chief, and council all talked about needing a good succession plan. We agree. That succession plan should be progressive from firefighter all the way up. We already have officers that have prepared and that are prepared to test and interview for the deputy chief position under the rules that were established and reestablished on whims. Making such important changes quietly and with little notice invalidates what in some cases amounts to years of preparation by tenured officers and firefighters. Eliminating qualifications for the second highest position in the department is not a best practice. It's the removal of guardrails. It reverts city employment back to the old days and old ways where important positions can be filled on a whim. We all know how wrong and dangerous this is. This is a continuation of the same unsafe practice. In closing, there is one more topic I'd like to bring up. Mr. Mayor, you stated at the last meeting, they assume that everyone is crooked, but that's not true. Well, what would you call it when the city administrator conducts an interview with the individual they want as a deputy chief? Sorry, his words were, we encourage someone to apply. Mind you, this invitation occurred before the position was even brought to the Civil Service Board or Council for approval, which directly goes against Mr. Campos' statement last meeting that they didn't post anything for the position because they wanted Council's approval first. When I brought this contradiction to his attention, I received a rule-twisting reply of, we encourage someone to apply. Constantly making Civil Service Board rule changes on the whims of the fire chief and administration must stop. And this one is illegal. Councilman Milan has stated it. We know it. We have made you all aware of it. The city solicitor said the same in his original opinion on the third-class city code. The only thing that has changed was his opinion to meet what the administration wants to do. If this continues, as a union, we will be forced to take action. Thank you for your time. Everyone, have a good night.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Thank you all the firefighters for coming. Appreciate your efforts, and thank you for keeping us safe, and please stay safe yourself. I'll take any comments from council. Anybody else from the public? Any comments, Mr. Rivera? Anyone else from the public would like to speak? Mr. Timmon?
Okay, Bill Timmon, 257 West Madison Street. I'd like to bring to council's attention an ongoing issue since prior to your administration, Mr. Mayor Panto. This was actually started during Mayor Mittman's reign. It's been ongoing since 2003, and this is in regards to an adjoining property of mine. To your credit, Mayor, every time I've contacted you or you've been contacted out in public, you have gone and done the due diligence of getting the people moving that should have been. The problem I have is that we have to come to you in order for something to happen. The people aren't returning phone calls, meaning Mr. Stephen Narowski. I called him repeatedly numerous times. Until you got involved, he would never return a phone call. I brought video in to show Mr. Charbel Corey in regards to the way the adjoining property owner was damaging the roof during a stop work order, and Mr. Corey laughed in my face. Beyond being unprofessional, he flat out said, "Oh, that's funny." Well, not to you, but it's funny because he's got a stop work order, but he's still working on the property and on the roof that he had no reason to be working on. This property owner is also illegally dumping, has been illegally dumping now for years, adjoining the property on the opposite side of him. And I just noticed there's even more showed up again. This has been an ongoing thing, and Codes has not done a thing to make him clean up or remove the debris that he has put in there. They're just leaving it go, as near as I can tell. When I finally got the code department to come to my house to go up onto the roof so they could see the damage that he did when he cut into the roof to put a curb in, not one, not two, 3 code officials showed up. Mr. Narowski, Mr. Corey, and Mr. Tillman. Why would you need 3 code officials other than there's something else in the works? And I'm going to use inflammatory words that are probably going to aggravate most of the people here, but I'm going to say it. What happened was those 3 code officials were not there to investigate the roof. They were there to now go through my property and nitpick my property, which I now have multiple things that need to be fixed according to them, and things that have never been an issue. I have a cantilevered second floor with wrought iron that had wrought iron uprights, columns. These columns have only ever been held in with 2 screws from the day I bought the house back in the 90s. They have never been load bearing from day one. And they're claiming that the house is falling over because one of the columns had come out during one of the storms, and I just never screwed it back in. And they're saying that the house is falling apart, falling down, whatever. For over 20 years, these things never fully touched the brick columns that they sit on. And you could always walk up to them and freely move them around. So I don't know where this is, all of a sudden these things are causing my second floor to drop. But I had approached codes numerous times after he cut the trench in the roof and put this curbing in to come up and inspect it so that they could count the layers. It was a real simple rubber flap over top, a couple screws come out, boom, you could count the layers. This has been as I said, this has been ongoing since 2003. I've run through, well, it's under a new owner, give them a chance. Now we're on our 3rd owner since this time, 3rd property owner. And I've given everyone a chance. 18 years, I think, to my credit, is very much giving people a chance. But they have never once requested to see the roof, count the layers. There are at least 3, if not 4 layers of rubber roofing up there, which state law is no more than 2 layers. And it's not even, I don't even know if it's just each state has agreed on that, or everywhere across the 50 states that I know of, it's no more than 2 layers. I was originally told by the code department that the owner never got engineering approval to modify his property. There are 2 doors out of the back of his property onto decks, and he rearranged the way the basement comes in, so it comes in off of the porch, and he enclosed the porch and never got engineering approval for that, from what codes had told me a few years ago when he had done this. And when I last spoke with Stephen Narowski about it, he told me that that property owner met everything that they requested of him. So I asked, okay, can I apply for Freedom of Information, or can I see what it was that you requested, what he gave you? No, you're not allowed to see that. So he met everything that the city claimed when I was originally told he didn't meet engineering approval, never submitted engineering approvals to cut holes in brick walls to put doors in where there were never doors, which is now becomes a weak point. And now all of a sudden he's met these, phantom requirements of which they would not disclose to me. The reason he moved the entrance and he removed the entrance to the basement from inside to the outside is he is prepping this property now for a second unit. One of the things that I do remember you running on, Mayor, was trying to convert all these multi-units back to single-family homes.
We're getting ready to offer a grant to do that of $20,000 per unit.
Well, here's a person who's converting a single-family home. My livable square footage of my house is 750 square feet. Mirror image on the other half, he's now converting this because he just got approval now for plumbing and baseboard heating for the basement. Why else would you be asking for that unless your intention is to turn the basement into some sort of a efficiency apartment, making it a 2-unit? But of course, I'm an idiot. I won't use the term idiot. I don't know that's what he's planning, according to Mr. Narowski. My problem here, this is an ongoing, he's had tenants in there without ever getting a CO. And the city did nothing to push either to move them out or to force more inspections to get full final approval to actually get the full inspections. This is years of ongoing. Now I have problems with my roof. He's damaged, the other property owner has damaged my property repeatedly that I've had to constantly keep repairing. And now with Mr. Norowski and Mr. Tillman up on my roof, that now I am being told, oh, well, there's issues on your roof, which amazingly, I didn't have leaks until he put this curbing in. And if you remember basic high school science, when you slowly tilt the glass, the water doesn't come out here. The water runs down. That's the same thing that's happened when he cut into the roof. The problem is he has a rubber roof, I have a tar and pitch roof. And what happens is there is not a good glue sealant. There's some companies that make something, but he's not done it because he's done this work all on his own. By not having a good seal, the water is coming in under the rubber. Now it is hitting where that void is that he cut and curling under and coming back over onto my side, damaging the interior of my house. And I am being hit now with code violations. I have to do my roof. Problem is, I've had 5 roofers up on my roof to see what I could do since he did this curbing. Not a single one is willing to take the job because they're afraid of the shoddy work that he's done. They don't want to have to come back or be sued by him because now the leaks actually continue on his side where it originally was. The original roof, the original problem was from the original owner. There was a point where there was a hole in the roof where they put, without gaining code approval, without filing for a code permit, they had a roofer go up, lay a sheet of plywood over top the holes, and then re-rubber over top. Did not rip off a single piece of rotted wood, did not seal anything correctly. They just went right over that new plywood and the old roof. And then since this owner has put another layer over top of that, and at least another layer on the adjoining area. With a tar and pitch and stone roof that I have, the stone is there to protect the pitch, the black tar, so it doesn't dry out. Okay, I'm just wrapping up here. The thing is, what's happened, when he would go up on the roof, he would sweep my stones away from the property line so that he could put more rubber down and overlap my area. He sealed up a hatch that I had at one point. I had to break my own hatch to get out onto my roof because he sealed it with the rubber and screwed it shut. The thing is, what ended up happening is sweeping away the stones, dried out the tar. I had to go up on my roof, fix the dried out tar, move all the stone back over. This is recurring. I was out of my house due to broken pipes because of him. He's damaged my property more times than I even care to count. Here is the part where you're going to hate me because of the words I am going to use. I believe, honestly, in my heart, that the code department is either willfully negligent, inept, or incompetent in their duties, and either they don't know what they're doing or they are corrupt, and I don't know who is potentially getting paid off or whatever. I'm not accusing in this aspect. I'll be honest with you. I would honestly hope and prefer to see the department being corrupted, because it's not just the fact of I'm getting screwed over for 18 years and the code department is not doing their due diligence on their work, their jobs. But the fact is, if they are incompetent in their ability to do their jobs and inspect properly, it's not just my house. It's every single building in this city that is at risk if they did not do their jobs correctly. So all I'm asking is to have a sit down. I don't know with you, Mr. O'Connell, because you're overseeing of that department, you, Mr. Panto, that we can have a sit down frank conversation. You know, we don't see eye to eye probably a good 75% of the time.
Many times we do.
But when we do, but when we sit down, we can talk to each other, we can get things done and accomplished. And that's what I hope that we could do to get something going here. Because the problem is, what I've got a violation notice for from the city, I cannot fix because he has not been forced to properly repair his. I'll stick around if you want my card or phone number afterwards.
I have it.
All right?
Thank you,
Or
Mr.
Mr.
Simmons.
O'Connell. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know you've
Thank
been
you.
here several times, and that's okay.
Mr. Campos, you and I get together tomorrow morning on this one.
Yes.
Bring Mr. Narowski in. I'd like to go over, maybe we could go over and see his neighbor's property. I have another property to check on over there on the south side anyway, so. Anyone else like to address city council on any item concerning the city of Easton? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move.
Second.
Moved and second. Roll call.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Malino?
Aye.